Hello everyone, my name is Mahima and I'm your buddy at Seekho. Today we're going to cover a very important topic in this video, which is how to build a stellar CV. Now, it is very important to understand that a CV is the most essential part of any interview. An interviewer gets an insight of how the candidate has, what's your past experience been like, and what is the quantity and quality of your work. In order to build a stellar CV, there are a few do's and don'ts which you need to take care of. But before that, let us discuss the layout of what a perfect CV should look like. To make a perfect CV, there are a few parameters or columns that you should definitely add in your CV. One, and the most important, is your educational qualification. With your educational qualification, the recruiter can get an easy idea of where you've studied and how your past qualifications have been. Usually, as per the industry standards, you need to add your qualification for class 10th, class 12th, your undergraduation, and your post-graduation, if any. It is very important that you try to make a table for your educational qualifications. That's usually what people follow, which has the name of your institution, the name of your college or university or school, which board did you study from or which university did you study from, and after that you can add your grades. You can also have another column to add your rank, if any. The rank section is not very important. You could also add a separate section for it if you have like a lot of ranks, but it is an additional thing that you can go forward and add in your CV. Now, moving next, we have another thing which is very important in your CV is to add your academic awards, if any. So, in schools and colleges, you get these award badges, etc. So, if you've won any award, if you have any distinctions in any subject, you can definitely add that in your academic achievement section. Usually people go forward and put the educational section at the first, and that is something that I do as well. However, it is totally your choice. If you wish to have your work experience first and then your education, that's perfectly all right. But do make sure to add your education section, and the table format is the best format to follow. Moving next, we have the internship section. Now, there's a debate which can take place in terms of if you are working and you also have internships, how to add it. So the best way that I go about is I add a work experience section under which I add all my internships, research projects, life projects, and you can also add your job experience, if any. So under your work experience, either you can write directly about your job, and then you can have other columns where you talk about your internships, life projects, research projects, or you can, if you are a college student, you can also write it under work experience and have other sections. Now, internships. Coming to internships, I think we all know that internships are a very, very important part if you're a college student, because that's your sales pitch to your employer to show what kind of quality work that you've done in the past. It is to be noted that some CVs that I've seen in the past, people just write their internship title and do not give a variety of reasons of the work that they have done. I think this is something that I would not recommend. What you need to do is that when you always write your internship, it is important to write your position in which you interned, the company you interned, and the period of time. So, for example, I have interned with EY. So, the way I'd go about is I would write that I was a strategy intern at EY India, Gurugram, which was the place or location of my office because there are different offices of EY. And then I would write the duration of my internship at the very end, which was from say November 2020 to January 2021. Now, a lot of people think that that is all they have to do when they write about their internship experience in their CV. However, the rule that I follow is that I always write at least 2 pointers under every internship experience and not more than 4 pointers. The best way to go about it is to use about 2 to 3 pointers to explain your work. So, for example, I have interned with Deloitte in the past, and I worked as a consulting intern, and I was working for a client for an oil and gas industry. So, after writing the previous things that I mentioned about my EY internship, or say for my Deloitte internship, the way I'd go about it is I would write consulting intern, Deloitte India, Delhi office, and after that I would write the date or tenure of my internship, and after that I would write a point that I worked, not I, but I would write I was always use an action verb and write worked as an intern where I handled this project. And then the second pointer could be about how many deliverables did I deliver, what was my job and responsibility during the task that I was assigned, so on and so forth. So your internship section in short should always have these parameters. Let's just repeat them once again. These parameters are including the name of your position, the name of the company, duration, and always adding 2 to 3 pointers under your internship experience and quantifying the impact. Now, a lot of people just write about their job description when they're writing about the work that they did. The way to make a stellar CV is to always tell your individual impact. Now, instead of saying that I worked in the consulting department where I worked on this project, is not what my individual contribution was, right? Because this was my job description or my roles and responsibilities. What did I do? I added an impact to the organization by delivering these many deliverables, by working with these many SMEs, so on and so forth. Now, the point we're trying to make here is that it's very, very important to quantify your impact. I will give another example while I talk about the life project section to make this point more clearer with and backing up with a much more essential example. Now, moving next, we have life projects. So you all know that in college we get research projects and life projects. You can find out life projects by working with various startups. Because I was a part of the consulting club of my college, I got a lot of life projects to do. But another way I found life projects was also by going and applying for different NGOs. So I went to the UN volunteer side or the UNDP website, and there I found out a lot of life projects. So you can always find out life projects from these various sources. And while I was doing my life project, I did my life project with UNDP Kenya for an NGO. And similarly, for your internship, you can write about life projects as well. Now, coming to the part of quantification of the impact that you've created while doing that life project or internship, instead of writing that you were responsible to raise funds, talk about how many funds did you raise? How many people did you reach out for that awareness? So when I wrote about my Kenya life project, the way I portrayed it on my CV was that I worked with CDS Kenya as a fundraising intern where I raised these many number of dollars. I estimated a budget for the whole fundraiser which was equivalent to these many dollars. I worked with 20 people from across the world and I was heading a team of these many people, X amount of people. Now, what happens is that because of this, my recruiter gets an idea of if I have led a team, what was the size of that team. If I have worked or analyzed different companies, how many companies were there? If I have raised funds, how many funds did I raise? So because of this, I am quantifying the impact that I'm creating while also portraying the work that I did. And this point could really, really help you stand out. So always quantify your impact in your CV as much as possible. Now, moving to the next section. Under your work experience, you can always diversify it by adding research projects. So if you worked in any academic project in college which was research related, or with any think tank or any NGO on a research related work, you can always write a research project. In my CV, I had done a few research work with a few NGOs and also with a few think tanks. So I added that as a separate section where I worked on podcasts and various UN dialogues, etc. So you can always add that. Now, after this is the most important part of where the most important part of your CV ends, which is your educational qualification and your work experience. These two sections, especially the work experience section, should hold around 50 to 60% of weightage in your CV, and then other parts should come. So make sure in your work experience section, you're covering everything and anything that you've done in the past. Obviously not all the points which are reluctant or you're not confident about talking about them. Please don't add them, but please do write the points that you are very confident about and you have done in the past. Now, moving to the other section wherein you can talk about your awards and achievements, your extracurricular activities. So the best way to go about it is that you can always add a column for extracurricular achievements. Now, for example, in my case, I play sports. So I play the sports called Taekwondo and I'm a black belt in it. I also do debating and I also do MUNing. So there are 3 extracurricular activities that I have. Similarly, you can identify these columns for yourself. And it is absolutely okay if you're doing only one of them. For example, you're just painting. So in extracurricular activities, you can talk about your painting competitions that you've won, or how many competitions you've participated in it, so on and so forth. Now, this is again not a very compulsory section. Some people have it and some people don't. So you can definitely leave it out. And another important section is position of responsibility, which you really need to cover in your CV. So if you were the president of any organization in your college or school, if you were heading any club, do add your position of responsibility and follow a similar format like internship. Try to add at least one pointer under your position of responsibility experience. And the best way to go about it is always show how many people did you lead, what was the footfall of that event, so that it shows the recruiter that this particular candidate has actually worked or led huge teams. And you can also show the number, as I mentioned before. So we've covered educational qualification, work experience or internship experience, life projects, research projects, and then we covered position of responsibility and extracurricular activities. I would advise to keep the extracurricular activities after the position of responsibility. Now, the last section that is very important, and if you have skill sets, you can definitely add it. So, what I wrote under my CV was I gave other information. So, under the other information tab, I included different things that I did not mention in my CV, like my volunteering experience. So, I had volunteered with a few NGOs internationally and nationally. So, in the other information, I created a sub column where I talked about my volunteering experience. And in the end, I talked about my skill sets. So usually some people write their soft skills, like their leadership, they're a team leader, they have communication skills, so on and so forth. It is not very necessary to always write your leadership skills or your soft skills, because that can be portrayed through your CV itself. It is important to write more of your hard skills or your technical skills, and also mention your proficiency level in that. So for example, in my case, I knew Excel, and that to advanced level. So some people just write Excel on their CV. Now your recruiter does not know what level of Excel you can know, so they might prepare questions for you which are of advanced Excel, but you just know basic Excel, right? So it is always very important and advised to write questions or write about topics which, or always write your proficiency level basically. And if you've done any courses, etc., you can always have a separate column to write your certifications and courses, and either in the other information, or if you have a lot of courses that you've done, it is advised that you have a separate column for it. So in all, what you need to understand while making a CV is that you need to sit down, take a piece of paper, and analyze what are the things that you've done in the past that you would really like to portray in your CV. So for example, when I was making my CV for college placements, I sat down and I was like, okay, I've done this, I've done this, I've done that. Now let's bucket them into columns. So for example, I had worked with the government of Punjab for a project. So I thought, let's put this into a live project, because this was not an internship. Then I had done a research work for the United Nations dialogues with another NGO, and I put that into research work. So that's the conversation I had with myself, that how I want my CV to get portrayed. Honestly, I did not do a lot of certifications and courses, so I thought that I would leave the certification and courses column for or either I can put it in my extracurricular activities. But after analyzing, I could get a fair idea of how I want my CV to look like. So before you make your CV, just make sure that you have this conversation with yourself. You have a conversation with yourself on which kind of layout or format you would like to use. So for example, in my college, we were allowed to use only one format, which was given to us by the placement cell, which is prevalent in almost a lot of DU colleges. But if you have another format which is used in your college, you can definitely go ahead and follow that as well. Coming to various do's and don'ts in your CV, while analyzing a lot of CVs, I see that people use and talk in their CV in first form or a first person format. For example, I worked in this department. It is not advised to use a first person form in your CV. It is always advised to use action verbs when you're talking about your CV. So action verbs are verbs like worked, advised, helped. There are a lot of action verbs. There's some action verbs which Seekho members also have an access to. You can always find them on the internet. So always use action verbs while you're working on your CV. Never use a first person form while you're writing in your CV or building your resume. The second part is that a lot of people have this format of where they do not use a lot of tables and leave a lot of spaces in their CV. So it's very important to have proper margins when you're making this CV. Have spacing, but don't make it look very weird, and have a lot of spacing going on, because that does not look neat at all. My third advice or a third tip would be always try to make a one page CV. If you're not someone who is a research student or a teacher and an undergraduate student or looking to enter into the corporate world, no one has time to read your two-page CV. It is an art to condense your CV in a single page. So it is always advised to write a one page CV. And if you're facing any issues in writing it in one page, always check out for the points that are not important or the points that you cannot talk about confidently. Now, the fourth important tip is the thing about quantification, which I've covered during the interview. I cannot focus on it enough, that how important quantifying your impact is. So instead of writing that I analyzed various companies, always write the number of companies that you analyzed. In a huge team, always write what was the number of that team. It's a very important yet short tip, and you might be thinking why I'm repeating it so many times. But trust me, if you make this small change in your CV, it can really help you create the impact that you're looking forward to. And with this, we come to the end of this video. I hope you found it very useful, and I'm really looking forward for you all to use these tips to build your CV. If you have any other doubts, we will be more than happy to address them in the comment section. And also, you can get access to all of these wonderful videos through the Seekho membership, so do check it out.